Hello folks, Killface Baylor here. Gonna do some more dicing math with playing cards. Today we will be using the commemorative Kawaii deck that I got from an independent photography shop in Kauai while we were there last winter, I guess. So as we saw before, 60 times 2, or infinity dice, deals basically twice to the player, twice to the host, and once over here randomly, right? Roughly. And then all these extra cards are the host's extra cards. They're the host's extra chances to win. Right? I did a video on that a little bit yesterday, and today we will be taking a look at some of the math of 50-50 dice, which is a fairer way to play, but can have some pitfalls to it as well. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to set up each player with black cards and red cards. I know I assume the black cards will be a little hard to see, but you'll be able to tell which ones are not the red cards. There we go. That'll work. Okay. Each player here has started with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, right? With the other player starting with a corresponding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I'm going to go over a scenario that actually came up the other day. I'm not going to use the players' names, as I told them I would not. But there was some confusion, and admittedly, I did get a little too attached to that. Because I felt like, well, there was a mathematical error, some communication errors, and it sounded to me like a chance for players to get scammed, which always freaks me out a bit. So, in 50-50 dice, right, both players roll, whoever gets the higher roll wins. If it's a tie, it's a re-roll, and basically the odds are the same for both players, meaning that on average, you'll end up with the same number of cards. Now, there's some ways to game the system, but we'll address those separately. For now, what I want to address is this. When you don't have a middleman, you have the upside of the fact that you're not both going to get scammed at the same time, right? Nobody's going to take both your money and run. Or a host. Like if you're just offering, now we both bet one card, and right, this person wins, so now they have more cards, and then now we both bet one card, and if this person wins again, we're back to the start. Or we both bet 3 cards, and then, you know, this person wins again, and now that person's down to 2, but there's just as much chance that that could happen in the other direction. And here, let's shuffle it. There we go. The problem comes when you don't strictly define your terms, when you don't have one place that all the money is going. For instance, if we do this first, right, we both, like, picture the game War. We both deal a card, right? King beats queen. This person has more cards, right? And if we do it again, the same thing will happen. And this person has more cards. But if we were to do it again, they go out here, and then it goes the other way, right? If instead what I had done is, instead of doing it play by play, what if I had gone, okay, so show your hand, right? Okay, black wins, but we don't actually move any cards. except to the bottom of the stack. Show our cards again. Black wins. Right, and we're just going to pay each other at the end, right? That's all simple enough. Show your cards again. Red wins. Now, at this point, let's say one of the players wants to withdraw and decides that, you know, this is enough. I'm cutting my losses, or I'm cutting my wins, or whatever. Who owes who, which cards? Right? It's a little bit harder to tell that what should happen to even it out is that if the red player won one, and the black player won 2, then the red player needs to give 1 card to the black player, and here we end up, you know, you can keep track of that, but you actually have to keep track of it, right? And you didn't have to keep track of it the first time because the cards went in the middle and then the correct person took them each time. And the problem that I saw that arose happened like this. Each of these cards is now going to represent 100,000 gold. We're each starting with 600,000 gold. Both players bet 100,000 gold. If they'd had a middleman, the way that would go, both cards go in the middle. Red wins, right? Now they go to red, right? Well, what happened instead is no trade was done, right? They kept their cards, and then they said double or nothing. Now, some of you may already know how to interpret that, but here are some options. Double or nothing could mean, okay, now we're still counting the one that red just won, but we're also betting 200K, right? Well, black wins the next time is how this happened. So this is one way to interpret it, in which case black owes red 1 card, red owes black 2 cards, and in order to straighten it out, the only thing you would have to do is for red to give black 1 card, like that. Only the terminology was double or nothing, and a different, more normal interpretation of double or nothing is that we ignore the last roll and we double our bet. But let's do this with a middleman so that it's more obvious. Red and black each pay in a card, right? And let's say that the red player wins this round. And then there's a double or nothing call. We both pay in a card to the middleman. All, and then now black wins. All cards go to black. Right? It's easy to track that that's happening because the middleman can communicate that. All the gold in their inventory that's been added goes here. Or the host can communicate that, or the players can communicate that, but you have to track it because one of 2 things happened. Either all the cards went here, or, and as you can see, this is 2 red cards added to the black stack, or only 1 red card added to the black stack the other way. So double or nothing traditionally would have meant, okay, 2 cards go in, 1 player wins, all of this stays in the table, we double our bets, and whoever wins this next one takes all. That's what the black player and most of the audience thought was happening. The red player thought that what that meant was we're evening out, we're just basically doing a bet again, but it's twice as high. Instead of both doubling our bets and putting it in there, what we're going to do is go, okay, red wins, right? Here, let's sort these correctly. There we go. Red wins. And now, when we do the double or nothing, right, we're counting this as a red win, and now we're going again here. Or actually, we're going again here, is what they thought was happening. Now, black wins. This goes here, this goes here. There's 2 red cards go to black, and 1 black card goes to red, instead of 2 red cards go to black, and no black cards go to red. I don't know if that's easy to follow or not. I know that the person who was playing the red player in this scenario was lost or disagreed with the player in black and the rest of the audience significantly. So I wanted to put that out there, that you need a way to clearly communicate what's happening, whether you're doing this or whether you're doing this, because the piles are not the same when you do that. And the problem is that if black had lost, so if you're doing the first way, right, where it looks like this, the difference between the remaining piles is kind of minor. But let's say that the player in black thought that the double or nothing play was actually, you know, the way it was going to happen. Instead of what happens here, where the piles are sort of equal, right? You're going to end up, let's see if we can do this, with this, right? Put this here. There we go. Now, that pile, right, with black having lost 3 cards. Oh, sorry. Black having lost 2 cards, and red having gained 2 cards. Right. And the reason that black put out that second card as risk was because they thought, right, that if they won, they would get basically 2 additional cards, right? They thought that if they won, instead of getting their starting cards plus 1, they would get their starting cards plus 2, which means they were actually taking on 100K extra bet than what they thought they were taking on, or getting 100K less reward. I know all this might be a little confusing, but I've tried to give a lot of different versions of examples. If there's one that worked, go back and replay just that section, I guess. It gets a little convoluted, but I'm trying very hard to point out the fact that the risks were not, the assumed risks were not the same for both players, and that was a lack of communication. And one of the ways that you can do that is that you put them in the middle first. And then you talk to the middleman. What happens? Does this go this way? And then we bet again. Or we bet again like this. Right? Because if this is happening, and this person wins twice, well, that was good to know. Right? Versus if this is happening, the first 2 go out, double the bets, and now this whole pile goes one way or the other. Only one person's walking away with winnings. As it happened, basically the player in black never got the option to be up by as many cards as they thought they would be up, right? They ended up 1 card up from what they would have been, instead of 2 cards up from what they would have been, right? So these went out. Black tried to call for this, put it all in the middle and slide it whichever way. Red agreed, but what red thought was happening was this. And now this, right? Now, if this whole thing goes this way, black never gets their card back, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Black lost 1 card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? Or, yeah, sorry, red lost 1 card. Black gained 1 card. Black thought on the second bet that they were betting the ability to get 2 cards, 200K. And that wasn't what was happening, but it wasn't what was happening because of a miscommunication. So, you know, be careful with your double dice. If you're not paying each other each time, you're asking for trouble, and you have to overly communicate. And do realize that the other thing that can happen is that a really trusted player will actually hold the bet, the whole thing, oftentimes. And this is a way to prevent scams. You get someone whose reputation is worth 10 times, 100 times, you know, that could be worth 100 times this 100K. And so there's not as much risk that they're going to scam you. It's still there, but there's not as much risk as, okay, if red's the trusted player and black is the new player, black might make a bet they can't afford or bet that they're not willing to trade for. And then red made an honest risk of their 100K when black wasn't going to risk anything. So having a trusted player host as a middleman, not connected to the bet, that's a traditional thing to do. Having a trusted player host as one of the players, you have to have someone who has a good enough reputation to be worth many times what the... Sorry, folks, camera cut off there for a second. But anyway, you get the picture. You want to have open communication, and easy ways to do that are to have a middleman host, or to have one of the players host, or even just to be much more quick with your communication, much more thorough with your communication than you are quick to roll dice or thorough with your involvement in the actual dice. You want mainly communication with a little bit of dice until you know all the terms very well for each other. So anyway, that's it. I hope it's helpful, and I will see you tomorrow with another video. Thanks. Bye.